Welcome to the Bowden Blitz ACC edition. I'm Joe Lisi, joined by former National Coach of the Year, Terry Bowden. Coach, week 2 is on the horizon in the conference, but we saw some major upsets in week number 1. Miami knocks off Notre Dame as a 2.5-point underdog, and we saw the battle in Death Valley with the LSU Tigers prevailing over Clemson 17-10. When you look at the conference now in week number 2 and the mindset of both Miami and Clemson overall, stark differences for both the Tigers and Hurricanes entering their contest this Saturday.
Well, I mean, the difference, Clemson's got a loss and Miami's got a win. When you look at who they played and the spread that was on the game, the level of competition, Clemson was not a lot less than LSU, although I thought they were some. And Miami was not a lot better than Notre Dame, although I thought they were some. And so now they're different. One's 1-0, one's 0-1. But I don't know that they're a lot different from a standpoint of how good they are today than they were last week. We have a different perspective of them, or a different idea. Maybe a little more we're favoring Miami, a little less Clemson. But I'm not sure as the season progresses, they won't be lined up exactly like we thought they would be. Maybe Miami a little above Clemson, maybe Clemson a little bit above Miami.
Well, even though it wasn't a conference loss, Clemson's still the front runners in terms of the current odds in the ACC. We see Clemson right there at plus 150. Miami closes the gap. They were plus 350 to win the conference prior to their win against Notre Dame. Now they're plus 290 entering week number 2. Louisville and SMU could step up both 9 and 10-1 respectively. When you look at Clemson overall, though, we talk about the measuring stick, right? We talk about the conference, knowing what they did last year and losing to Texas. SMU got pushed around by Penn State. As a whole, do you still feel the conference, the ACC, can potentially challenge if Clemson does make a run where they can make a national championship run against the likes of maybe Ohio State and Georgia, respectively?
I mean, no, I still see them fighting, Miami and Clemson. I still see them fighting for a conference championship, but I don't see them going that far right now in the college football playoffs. I still see the strength of college football being in the SEC and the Big Ten. If you look at Ohio State and the top teams there in the SEC, it's still too early to call. But I still, even before last weekend, I felt like ACC, I could tell who might be playing for the championship. But I did not have a strong feeling that these teams, Clemson and Miami, at this point, would go far in the college football playoffs. It's way too early to tell with how much they're going to improve. But that's still the way I feel right now, that we've still got a little bit of a ways to go from the ACC to the top 3 teams in the SEC, the top 2 or 3 teams in the Big Ten.
As a coach, would you prefer coming right out of the gate the way Clemson and Miami came out with top 10 opponents to play and engage how your team is? Or would you like that week 1 matchup to potentially be against a Troy or a San Jose State or an FCS opponent where you can maybe, see where that talent is in week 1 and then coach it up from week 2 and beyond?
Yeah, that's an easy one to answer in retrospect. But let me say this, and I've had 28 seasons as a head football coach in college where I've gone in, and I don't think I ever wanted the tougher game to start with. If I got it, I sold it as what I wanted. I sold it to my players as a better opportunity, sold it to my fans and to the press and the media. But as a coach, you want one more week to prepare. You want a team that you're going to show up, play your guys, try to get a little bit better, see where you stand, and then get into the tougher teams. And to be honest with you, I don't know how many coaches will tell you the truth, but I think that's almost a consensus of coaches. If they had to tell the truth, they would want one. It's like an exhibition. You would like one just to see where you stand, maybe to hide what you're really going to do when you get into the conference schedule, but to give you a chance. If you don't play good, you're still going to win.
We've talked from the coaching perspective as it relates to week 1 to week 2. We have talked at length throughout the offseason that the biggest progression happens from week 1, whether win or lose, to week number 2, because you have a body of work. You see what your quarterback could do. You see how the defense responds to certain situations. So do you expect Clemson now, playing Troy, which is no easy opponent, even though they're at home in this matchup, to potentially mix it up and get back to basics and potentially cover this number on Saturday afternoon?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you get better from week 1 to week 2, and I do believe there's some truth in that. Now, if you're playing a fairly equal team in week 2, they got better from week 1 to week 2 too, so it might not show up on the scoreboard as a win. But this is a great opportunity for Clemson, I think, to get better. And remember, I mean, if you believe Dabo Sweeney's press conference post game, his best player did not play a great football game. And when your quarterback is your best player, he needs to play a good football game. So in his mind, if they can just get that quarterback to settle down and play his game, they'll be a lot better. Personally, I don't think Clemson goes to the run well enough. They don't run the ball well enough. And, when Tony Elliott was the offensive coordinator and they won 2 national championships, he was the running back coach. And he called plays. And I promise you, the running game was involved. I'm not sure that's what goes through the mindset of Clemson right now. Then we get into a tough ball game. We're going to run and pass and run. Don't worry about it being close. I think there's that mentality. We've got to score, and get ahead. Then you find yourself passing the ball too much. So hopefully they'll get back and establish that running game, and that'll make the quarterback even better.
LSU held Clemson to only 31 rushing yards on the night, only 1.6 yards per carry, put Cade Klubnik into long third down situations, especially in the second half, and that's why LSU was able to steal it on the road. We talked about the dominance prior to the matchup, Coach, of how Clemson played at home, entering that battle 70-5 overall, basically over the past 10 seasons. Over the last year and a half now, they've lost 3 games by considerable margins. They lost and got beat up by LSU. You can make that argument if they call that touchdown, one that was an incompletion, a catch. They lose it by 14 points. They lost to South Carolina last year at the end of the regular season in Louisville. Has the tarnish worn off in terms of home field advantage, potentially in a psychological effect as they navigate through the conference?
Well, the more games you lose at home, the psychological effect begins to change. You don't have that unbeatable attitude that you have when you never lose. And of course, I think they opened up and lost to South Carolina late, lost a couple at home last year, and obviously they lost this year. Now they're not as good. They're not quite as good as they were when they were the best, when they won national championships, or even when I was an analyst there and we lost to LSU in the national championship. We were at that prime level right then as well in 2020. So I think right now and I've always felt like those teams that win all their home games, there's a good reason. They're better than the teams they're playing. And most of the times you open up with a non-conference team that's not as good. But when you play better people and you're not at that level, then you're going to lose some. So really, Clemson's on its way back. I just think it's too close to call how good or how not as good Clemson is, or how good or not as good LSU is, because we've got a whole season. But I think when you play teams like LSU and you play them at home, last year you had an up-and-coming South Carolina team that was winning ball games at the end of their season with the North Sellers. You better be at your very best, or you're going to lose a game or two.
When Coach and I come back, we'll take a look at the Heisman odds in the conference. Cade Klubnik took a step back. He was the front runner with Garrett Nussmeier right behind Arch Manning that lost his matchup to Ohio State. Nussmeier now the front runner on multiple sports books, but Klubnik has an opportunity at 14-1 to step up and make a statement. The other quarterback, Coach, that had a dynamic effort against Notre Dame was Carson Beck. 2 touchdowns, over 200 yards. He wins that game outright at home. Maybe, just maybe, the U is back with Mario Cristobal. Welcome back. Talk Heisman odds and the Week 2 slate right here on the Bowden Blitz. Back on the Bowden Blitz, Joe Lisi and Coach Bowden breaking down the ACC Heisman odds. Left off talking about Cade Klubnik and his disappointing performance against LSU. Klubnik was a 9-1 shot. Now entering week number 2, he stands at 14-1. But the quarterback that helped his cause the best was Carson Beck out of Miami, coach. Over 200 yards passing, clean with the football, 2 big touchdown passes en route to the 27-24 win over top-ranked Notre Dame. Carson Beck sits at plus 950 right behind Garrett Nussmeier from LSU. Carson Beck has the potential to challenge for a Heisman this year.
No, yeah, because it is a publicity trophy. Who gets the right publicity at the right time, the right stats, the right team that wins a lot, the big plays, several big plays, and it's going to change throughout the season. But right now, you've got Carson Beck at Miami beat Notre Dame, defending, well, played in the national championship last year in a game they were just a tad underdog, and he played with poise. He played like an old Georgia quarterback when they could play defense and run the football, and a quarterback could manage their offense. If there's any knock on Carson Beck winning the Heisman, is that they won't. I mean, he'll manage it. He won't look like Cam Ward. He won't look like Lenore Sellers. But he'll do is just be poised. He's a battle-tested veteran. He'll make sure they don't lose games they should win. I like that part. He caught a lot of flack last year at Georgia. But if you go back and look, they didn't run the ball very well. And they weren't always dominating teams. So he was throwing it when he shouldn't have been throwing it and trying to catch up when he didn't. You wouldn't want to have to catch up. So he's in a good situation. As long as they keep winning, that's his best chance, because I think he's an NFL talent that's not a flashy quarterback. And so many of these guys that are NFL guys, they're not necessarily the flashiest guys, because we all want to see the guys that can run like a gazelle and throw it. We all want to see that guy. Not always the best NFL player, not always the best Heisman candidate.
I was very impressed as well with the offensive line protecting Carson Beck, especially in third down situations. You and I had broken it down how Miami had the number 1 ranked third down offense all of last year with Cam Ward. He was not even touched basically until the fourth quarter against his matchup with the front seven of Notre Dame. They play like that. From an offensive line perspective, Carson Beck is going to put up numbers throughout the ACC schedule. We'll see how it plays out. Miami does face off against Bethune-Cookman this coming Saturday. They're huge favorites, should roll to a 2-0 record in 2025. There's 2 big battles in the conference, very tight spreads. We'll start with a rematch from last year, Coach. This game played out in overtime. Last year, Vanderbilt got the outright win over Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech struggled with South Carolina. They lost that matchup 24-13. Vanderbilt moves to 1-0 with their week 1 matchup and win. How do you see this game playing out? Because early on, I like the Hokies in this battle.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I still like the Hokies in this battle. When we say Virginia Tech struggled in that game, they played a real good South Carolina team, and they were losing 10-8 in the fourth quarter. Then they gave up a punt return for a touchdown, and then a bomb. 2 plays, and they're down by 14, and it was a 10-8 ball game against a team that we thought was a dark horse for the SEC championship game with a Heisman Trophy quarterback candidate. So Kyron Drones is a very good quarterback. I thought Virginia Tech looked very, very physical, and I don't think Vanderbilt's going to sneak up on anybody anymore. I really like their quarterback. I like their head coach. I like the newfound confidence they have. But I think they snuck up on a lot of people last year that did not think Vanderbilt could play with people. And yes, they will be good. But I like the Virginia Tech team that got beat. As a team that's made improvement. Of course, that coach's job was on the hot seat. I think they played a very, very good football game against a better South Carolina football team.
I'm in agreement with you, and I think when we talked about Virginia Tech in the offseason, they were 6-7 overall. They had lost 7 games by an average margin of defeat of 7 points or less. To your point, they went toe-to-toe with a big physical offense and defensive line in South Carolina, basically contained Lenore Sellers in that rushing attack to only 119 yards on the ground. Turnovers did hurt Kyron Drones in the passing attack. He completed 15 of 35 passes, 221 yards. no touchdowns, but 2 critical interceptions.
Yeah.
And they were able to move the football, especially in the second half of that matchup, just could not convert inside red zone opportunities. So I'm with you. I don't know if we get over the 47.5, Coach, but because of Diego Pavia and Kyron Drones, I mean, we could see fireworks where this game does play out potentially in the 50s. They got over the total last year, but I still lean to Virginia Tech in that ball game. Let's turn our attention to the matchup in Durham. Duke, 3.5-point home underdogs to Luke Altmaier and Brett Bielema and the Fighting Illini coming out of the Big Ten. You look at both teams, they're both 1-0. 3.5-point number, 47.5 is the total for this matchup. I have to be honest, I'm going with the home dog as well. I believe in Darian Mensah. I believe in Manny Diaz to potentially strike the upset over the Illini.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Illini. I'm just caught up in this who can run the ball best can win the football game. Both these teams I'm very impressed. Duke has really 9 wins last year. They picked up an outstanding quarterback from Tulane. But Luke Altmaier, one of my favorites, they're going to be physical, they're going to be strong, and they're going to run the football. And I just think they come in with a little more strength and power. And this game, I think it's down to a 1-point spread right now. It's going down. But I like Illinois because I'm in this mood now. When the team can run it and they can physically be a little bit stronger than the other team, I'm going to stick with them. And I believe that's different. Although the quarterback, at Duke, they've done a great job of having this team ready a second year in a row after the good year they had last year.
How important is this game for Duke? Because when we talked about it in the offseason, I had asked about them ever challenging for a championship. This is a huge measuring stick if they get the victory over a Big Ten opponent.
Well, I mean, you're talking about a ranked number 11. You're talking about an outstanding opponent. And if they beat them, are they a top 10 team already? So I think they're playing a top 10, top 11 ranked team. They got a great chance to win the football game. If they do, they're going to ease close to the top in that conference.
We'll come back with the other big battle in the ACC, SMU and Baylor, coming up next. Continuing our coverage of Week 2 in the ACC, we left off talking about 2 big matchups within the conference, Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech, and Illinois and Duke. We'll now look at the other big matchup taking place in SMU. The Mustangs are 3.5-point home favorites against Baylor. We saw Baylor go toe-to-toe for basically 3 quarters with Auburn. They lost that matchup as a 2.5-point underdog, Coach. They now go on the road. I like what I saw out of Sawyer Robertson. I know I'm picking dogs here, but I believe Baylor's the better team in this ballgame.
Well, I'm at the dog pound with you because I'm picking dogs too. Sawyer Robertson, he threw for 417 or 419 yards against Auburn. This is too good of a Baylor team to be 0-2. And again, SMU at home in the last 16 home games, they're 15-1. Kevin Jennings, the quarterback, does an outstanding job, is one of the top returning quarterbacks in the conference. But they lost 9 starters on defense. Then they won a lot of close ball games. And I think Baylor is going to win this football game. They are a very good team. Sawyer Robertson was probably statistically the second best quarterback in the conference last year in the Big 12. And they're going to contend for the conference championship again this year. So, again, I like SMU, great home field team. But I think Baylor is the better football team right now.
I agree with that. I think we do get through the 63.5. I just think when you look at both defenses and how they like to play up-tempo, I believe in Sawyer Robertson. He looked confident against an SEC opponent. I think if there is one maybe weakness of Baylor, they allowed Jackson Arnold, who wasn't thought of as being an athletic quarterback to the degree of rushing for 138 yards on the ground. That defense needs to shore up, especially if Kevin Jennings catches the edge in this matchup. still believe that we get over the total. But if you're SMU, are you attacking over the top with Jennings, or are you potentially utilizing some RPO looks in this matchup?
Well, I think you always. I think one of his strengths is the big play, the deep ball, and I think both of those have to be a part of the game. But if you're going to win a tight ball game, and any way you look at this game, it's projected to be a tight football game. Turnovers and explosive plays are the key to any big football game. So I think you've got to expect some big plays downfield out of Kevin Jennings. And then also, I think you've got to make the quarterback Sawyer Robertson. You've got to get after him. Don't let him control the football game because he's too good of a quarterback.
The other team I want to mention in the ACC is Stanford. We saw them lose their week 1 matchup to Hawaii on the road, and you and I had talked about maybe how Frank Reich could potentially be as an interim head coach. We know from a talent level they're not there, but they do play BYU this weekend, significant underdogs. Is there anything that you saw out of Stanford in their week 1 matchup that potentially can carry on the road in Provo?
I wish I could have seen more. The fact is they were a walk-off field goal from going into overtime at a game against Hawaii, and that was a tough place for them to play. Would have been a great start, but ultimately they've been 3-9 the last 4 years in a row. They're in a transition interim head coach phase. BYU. I mean, BYU's probably going to name their score. I don't think they have I think BYU is going to score and score big in this football game. And if it's an over, it's going to be mostly all BYU's points.
The other matchup that I want to get into briefly is Bill Belichick. He was embarrassed on Monday night in front of a primetime audience as a 3.5-point home dog. They now are at home laying 19.5 against Charlotte. Could Max Johnson, Gio Lopez, and that quarterback by committee potentially get the victory and, more importantly, Coach, get the road win over the Charlotte 49ers?
Well, I don't think Charlotte's a good one to come back and have a chance to get your win against if you're North Carolina. It's what they need, but there's a whole bunch of problems there. I think the team that you really wonder what's going on is North Carolina, because everything they told people would happen, everything they led you to believe would happen, did not happen. A brand new staff, 70 new players. And I've always said, and Joe, you knew that what is Bill Belichick's motive for going to North Carolina? Is he actually going to go there and try to build them and take them to a level they've never been? Or has he got his sons on the staff and trying to plan for their future and had 4 tough years in the NFL and really couldn't get a job? To be honest, I don't know exactly what's going. It was so bad in their first performance and such a disappointing. I think this game they'll get their win, and there's a couple of wins. Their schedule's not terrible, but I'm just saying there's a whole lot of concerns, including quarterback, on that team.
Sometimes the best recipe is getting away from home and going on the road. Coach and I will see how it plays out. For Coach Bowden, I'm Joe Lisi. We'll see you in week number 3 right here on the Bowden Blitz. Have a great weekend.